The state of emergency issued by the national government in the penitentiary system to control violence came to an end this Tuesday in Ecuador. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the first country in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, to authorize the use of Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala. Israel carried out a missile strike on Tuesday against a container depot in the Syrian port city of Latakia. From the headquarters of Telestory English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The state of emergency issued by the national government in the penitentiary system to control violence gets to an end this Tuesday in Ecuador. The measure was decreed on September 30th by President Guillermo Lasso after a prison riot in the city of Guayaquil left 119 dead. The state of emergency for serious social unrest was renewed by the president in November after a new situation of violence in the same penitentiary resulted in 68 deaths and dozens of wounded. In both cases, the government's decision allowed the police and armed forces to be mobilized to reinforce security in the country's prisons. The executive informed that despite the end of the measure, the military will continue to guard the prisons. Honduras Court of Electoral Justice confirms the appeals of candidates for mayors and deputies of different political parties. In Monday's conference, the president of the council detailed that the appeals filed, 20 appeals request jurisdictional recount or vote by vote, 1 complaint for electoral crime, 1 appeal against the definitive census, 5 appeals against resolution denying administrative action in the council, 1 for administrative nullity, and 2 that leave the appellant without registration. In Peru, President Pedro Castillo testified before the public prosecutor's office in the case of an investigation of alleged executive interference in the last promotion process in the armed forces. The statement was scheduled for this Tuesday at 11 o'clock local time by representatives of the country's prosecutor's office, according to the executive's lawyer Eduardo Pachas. He also explained that all the facilities and the easiness will be provided to the authorities for the interrogation to be held at the government palace. Finally, the president's legal representative pointed out that it has not yet been confirmed whether it will be the prosecutor Avalos Rivera herself who will take the statement, but that his office has confirmed that his office will be in charge of the procedure. And we stay in Peru, as the government announced it will subsidize the families of victims of repression, as well as the relatives of those who died in the mobilizations carried out in late 2020. Peru's government published the authorization for the exceptional and one-time economic delivery to those seriously injured in the mobilizations that took place between November 10th and 14th, December 1st and 3rd, and December 20th and 30th, 2020. The measure was taken through Emergency Decree number 114/2021, which specifies that the economic delivery is not compensatory or reparatory in nature and will be financed by the budget assigned to the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights of the Indian country. According to governmental data, about 12 farm workers died during the repression of the demonstrations against the agrarian law of the government of former President Martín Vizcarra. And the Barbadians are to elect a new government in 3 weeks' time. The surprise announcement was made Monday evening by Prime Minister Mia Motley in a national address from Ilaro Court. Motley revealed January 19th, 2022 as the election date, with the nomination day being January 3rd. General elections were constitutionally due to be held in 2023. Motley led the Barbados Labour Party, the BLP, to a historic 30-0 whitewash of a Democratic Labour Party, the DLP, in the May 2018 general elections. Motley met with the President of Barbados, Sandra Mason, to ask her to dissolve the parliament with immediate effect and call for new elections, claiming there was division inside the country. The Prime Minister said even though the country was in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, she believed a successful and safe election could be held. In Colombia, the annual report from the Institute of Peace Studies and Development in the past reveals that some 92 massacres were perpetrated in the country and at least 48 signatories of the peace agreement were killed during 2021. In the study, titled Figures of Violence in the Regions 2021, in the past gathers events that occurred during the 1st of January and December 24th. The document details that at least 326 people died in those massacres, which occurred in 20 departments of the country. The assassinations against social leaders were concentrated in 108 municipalities, where at least 55 indigenous people, 29 community leaders, and 37 leaders of different social organizations lost their lives. Now we move on to other topics. More than 26,000 hectares were devastated by forest fires in central and southern Chile, tripling the affected areas reported in 2020. As of Sunday, there were at least 21 active outbreaks and 179 fires, which have devastated homes and have left at least 4 people injured while fighting the flames. One of the most complex scenarios was experienced in the region of Ñuble, where the hectares reduced by far amount to more than 1,000. Due to these fires, several towns in the sector were evacuated. Among the causes of this situation are the low humidity and the high temperatures. These conditions will continue during the summertime and will lead to the appearance of new outbreaks. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the first country in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, to authorize the use of Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala. The Drug Control Center in Havana authorized Abdala for emergency use last July, after confirming that the results of an initial study conducted by the Genetic Engineering Center found an efficacy rate of more than 92% in the prevention of the COVID-19. Cuban vaccine will help raise vaccination rates in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where barely 30% of the population has received at least one dose of an antiviral vaccine, and just over 23% have completed the immunization schedule. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has increased 83% in the last 14 days and is causing the healthcare network to be stretched to the limit in several states. The Omicron variant is responsible for the 3 out of 4 cases detected. Due to the new wave of contagions, thousands of domestic and international flights have been cancelled. As a result of crew losses, and businesses have had to close. Sporting events and other artistic activities have been suspended. The situation is even more critical because tens of millions of U.S. citizens have not received a single dose of the anti-COVID-19 vaccine, which complicates the health forecasts. In this regard, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, acknowledged that the health system will collapse in every cities and regions of the country.
America had made progress. Things are better. But we do know that with the rising cases, we still have tens of millions of unvaccinated people, and we're seeing hospitalizations rise. It means our hospitals in some places are going to get overrun, but in terms of equipment, both in terms of equipment and staff.
The Omicron variant is affecting the world major powers while setting record infection forecasts for the beginning of the next year. The Omicron variant represents a major setback to recovery of the world economy, while tourism and other sectors register huge losses. The most evident signs in the United States alone are restaurants that closed due to staff contagion, leisure and sport events suspended, as well as thousands of domestic and international flights cancelled due to crew reduction. In the country, Omicron already accounts for 3/4 of the infections, with an 83% increase in cases in the last 14 days. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, France and Italy are also expecting an increase in the number of infections. The traditional meeting of the heads of state and governments from the Community of Independent States, CIS, took place this Tuesday in Russia at the initiative of President Vladimir Putin. Heads of state and government of the Community of Independent States will discuss measures to enhance the effectiveness of cooperation and to boost socio-economic development at their traditional meeting. The agenda includes an analysis of the results of Belarus presidency over the last year and to discuss problems that affect the former Soviet nations. Putin has described the group as solid in areas of security and economy and has urged for a wider exchange in the battle against coronavirus and the development of COVID drugs. The community was formed in 1991 and since then the ties have been solid, including the creation of common enterprises and projects.
Many things have changed dramatically over the years, but at the same time, I like to stress that the creation of this organization was certainly worth it. The integration has been increasing on many tracks and in various aspects, including state security, economy. I have to say that the connections between the countries preserved since the Soviet Union are playing a positive role.
In Denver, Colorado, a shooting resulted in 4 people killed and a police officer injured on Monday night. According to Lakewood police reports, the suspect also died after a fire exchange with the officers. The shooting started shortly after 5 p.m. in central Denver, where two women, were killed and a man was injured. A short time later, a man was fatally shot several blocks away. The wounded officer was undergoing surgery on Monday night, and his condition was not immediately known. 2021 was a brutal year for gun violence in the U.S., where communities across the country experienced a heartbreaking increase in homicides and shootings. The rise started in 2020, when homicides rose by 30% from the year before. The increase amounted to an estimated 5,000 additional deaths. The field data from 2021 is not yet available, but the rise appears to have continued, with homicides in cities such as Oakland, Portland, and Detroit continued to climb. And we stay in the U.S. 2 children were killed and another 3 minors were hospitalized with injuries when a car plowed into them and fled the scene in South Florida on Monday, authorities said. The Broward County Sheriff's Office said in a news release that it was investigating what happened outside an apartment building in Wilton Manors, Florida, along with the Wilton Manors Police and Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue. The Sheriff's Office didn't immediately provide ages for any of the children. The Wilton Manor Police Department tweeted that a family reunification center was set up at the City Hall Emergency Operations Center.
That it was a hit and run, and the driver fled, and detectives are looking into the circumstances around how exactly it happened. This is a heartbreaking evening for everyone, for family, friends, and for the first responders that responded to the scene. Detectives are asking if anyone has any information, saw this happen, please call Broward Crime Stoppers.
China's foreign ministry said on Tuesday the United States has to abide by the Outer Space International Treaty and take responsible measures to protect the safety of astronauts.
I can responsibly confirm to everyone that in July and October this year, Starlink satellites launched by SpaceX made 2 close encounters with China's space station. During this period, Chinese astronauts were carrying out missions at the space station. Out of safety considerations, the Chinese space station adopted emergency measures to avoid collisions. The US talks about the concept of so-called responsible conduct in outer space, but ignores its obligations under international treaties, posing a serious threat to the lives and safety of astronauts. This is a typical case of double standards.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Israel carried out a missile strike on Tuesday against a container depot in the Syrian port city of Latakia. According to the state agency ZANA, a military source in the Arab country stated that around 3:21 a.m. local time, Israeli forces attacked with missiles from the deep in the Mediterranean west of Latakia, targeting the container yard at the commercial port. The Israeli aggression caused fires at the site and left extensive material damage, and work is still underway to extinguish these flames. The Israeli regime frequently launches missile attacks against targets in Syria. On December 7th, the port of Latakia had already been the target of a similar attack. The Iranian Foreign Ministry on Monday urged the countries taking part in the 8th round of nuclear talks in Vienna to attend the negotiations with the determination to reach a good agreement.
If all parties at the Vienna talks can abide by the agenda, the negotiation may end quickly, and we will see a good result in this round.
The spokesperson also emphasized on the need to lift the unilateral coercive measures against Iran in order to make progress in the negotiations on the nuclear agreement signed in 2015.
Now we have two new documents on the nuclear issue and on the lifting of sanctions. Our negotiators are particularly concerned about the lifting of sanctions and want to see the other side show seriousness and reach a meaningful agreement within the framework of international law.
Lebanon's Prime Minister said on Tuesday that talks with the International Monetary Fund could reach the final formula for an agreement before the end of February. Najib Mitaki made the comments during a news conference in Beirut hours after President Michel Aoun called for an end to the 11-week government deadlock undermining state institutions.
Concerning the communication with the Monetary Fund, we are in contact with the IMF and we are currently doing our homework. We're doing what needs to be done from our side. Those will come around the 15th of January in the middle of next month. We will have our first meetings to review everything we have done, what they approve and what we will reach. After that, we will continue the work we have to do. They will come back again maybe at the end of January or the beginning of February to reach the final formula for the agreement. Then we will announce to the Lebanese people the reality of what we will have.
Dozens of Afghan women staged a demonstration in Kabul calling for human rights and accusing the Taliban government of killing members of the former regime. Members of Afghanistan Women's Political Participation Network protested in a closed area in Kabul, demanding rights to education, work, and political participation. At the same time, they claimed that the Taliban were killing members of the former government and ex-soldiers. The protest comes as the Taliban government imposes new restrictions on the mobility of women who can now travel alone within 70 kilometers of their homes. We want this group for the 1,000th time to stop its criminal machine. Former members and government employees are under direct threat. These open criminal acts and broken promises are against the general amnesty that the leaders of this group are talking about. Yes, we fear, but they, the Taliban, have forced us to protest. They are involved in genocide every day. They are committing crimes on a daily basis. They stop us every day and want to eliminate women from society. They are not only killing men, but they have been eliminating the women as well. They don't even allow the women to get out of their homes without a male chaperone. South Africans have been attending St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town to pay tribute to Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, who died on Sunday. Local residents remember Tudu's work in the reconciliation of a country that still had the open wounds from the damages caused by segregating and repressive minority. One of the visitors who paid his respects to the icon said, and we quote, "He taught us, it doesn't matter what your differences were, you can work through it." The cleric dies on Sunday at 90 years of age at the Oasis Frail Care Center in Cape Town after several hospitalizations since 2015 related to the prostate cancer, illness diagnosed to him in 1997. Tudu will give a Category 1 state funeral with religious rites, which will be held on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2022.
I think his legacy will live on forever because he built what we have today. The way that I remember the arch is, I was a child when it was apartheid, and I remember seeing the sad things on TV, right? And after that, people could have turned around and retaliated to do the same injustice again, whereas the arch didn't let that be.
I think he taught us how to treat people. He taught us, doesn't matter what your differences were, you can work through it, and he stood up for everyone regardless. He never asked for anything for himself. And he was our moral compass, as everyone is saying. And he went through lots of battles himself and did it with absolute grace. So we are very sad to lose him, but very glad he's in no pain anymore.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you also can follow us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.